And don't get me wrong, oh my God, is it fast? Like, it's actually probably unethically fast. It's pretty funny to compare the Cybertruck with the most famous H2 Hummer from the early 2000s. Both highly controversial when they were released. You either love to love or love to hate those vehicles. And what's interesting is, while this is absolutely a big and gaudy vehicle, nothing is as big and gaudy as a Cybertruck. So in many ways, the Cybertruck is doing this a favor because you look like less of a dick driving one. Either way, we're here to see what the electric Hummer is all about, and spoiler, I'm actually pleasantly surprised by this vehicle. And I'm going to show you why by taking a look outside, inside. I'm going to show you some of the features and technology of this vehicle. We're going to try and cram a bike in the back to see how usable this Hummer is. And last but not least, we're going to take it on the road to see what it's like to drive. We've already talked about how big and gaudy this vehicle is, but that's kind of the point, right? This thing is huge. It's very wide. It has a massive presence on the road, both visually and while you're driving it. But in terms of looks, it's actually kind of interesting in this gray color, which is called meteorite metallic. A lot more subdued than the yellows that we had in the early 2000s on the H2. That was much more loud. When you get in this color, it actually doesn't scream, "Look at me," like many vehicles these days do. This has the off-road package, so it has some 18-inch wheels with massive tires on them, 305/70 18-inch tires. These are Goodyear Wranglers, and they certainly look the part with the tread blocks being very, very aggressive. The off-road package is also giving you things like some of these recovery points, which are all over the vehicle, and these rock sliders. Overall, I like the look of this thing, but let me know what you think about the looks of the new Hummer in the comments below. We're under the hood where traditionally there would be a gasoline engine, but of course this is an electric vehicle, so we don't have to deal with that. We have a frunk with plenty of storage. This is the tri-motor model, so there's one motor in the front and two motors in the rear. They combine for about 1,000 horsepower, which even in a 9,000 pound car is still pretty impressive, and this thing moves, as you're going to see out on the drive. The other thing that's worth noting is this whole Ultium platform thing that GM is doing. This is a massive battery, over 200 kilowatt hours of capacity in this thing. It's essentially two battery packs sandwiched together, which is why on the side of the vehicle under the door you see such a wide margin. Now, of course, since it has a big battery pack, you would expect a pretty decent range, and that's what this has. Even for a giant vehicle, it gets about 300 miles of range depending on who you ask. I'm getting a little bit less than that. With a giant battery pack, you typically have a long charging time, and that is somewhat true here, but this does support 400 and 800 volt architecture and actually charges relatively quickly compared to a lot of vehicles on the market. Inside the Hummer, this is a really great place to be. It actually reminds me a lot of sort of a nicer Bronco, and I say that because it's kind of fun in here. There's a bit of whimsy. The design is really unique and interesting. It's of course very boxy and feels boxy like those Jeeps and Broncos, of course. You get some glass roofs which are removable, which is really neat. Once again, hearkening to the Bronco. But as much as I keep mentioning that vehicle, this feels way nicer than a Bronco. It feels a little better put together, and of course it should be for the price, being that this is over $100,000. What I really like about this experience is, I mean, you know, many things, but first of which is, while there is a big screen in here, it's not all about the big screen. You can do things outside of the big screen, and when I say that, there's HVAC controls that are physical here, and they kind of have a nice click to them. You also have some other options down here. This is very similar to what GM does in a lot of their truck applications, which is to say good. It's a good mix of electronic screen and also physical buttons. I really like that. You have a slightly more traditional shifter, although it doesn't quite give you the same gates that a regular automatic shifter would in a gas car. It does at least have a nice solid feeling to it and isn't just one of these like dinky little buttons that you get in some electric vehicles. Visibility isn't amazing in here, but it's also not too bad. And the other nice part about this is it's chock full of technology. Of course, you're getting the adaptive cruise controls type situation and also Super Cruise, which to me, if you've seen my previous videos, is really the best self-driving or driving assist feature that I've personally ever used. I actually like it even more than Tesla's on the highway. But other technology to help with the viewing is cameras all over the place. This, like many GM trucks, has cameras on the sides, cameras from a top-down view, camera on the back. It's full of cameras, which is nice if you actually intend to off-road this or not. I mean, it's just nice to be able to park. Now, speaking of off-roading, one thing I haven't mentioned so far is that this has locking differentials front and rear, so that is something that is nice to have in the off-road package that this is packaged with, but that is a $10,000 option, and we'll get into that more on the drive, but you really need to ask yourself, do you need an off-roading package on an electric Hummer? Last but not least, the seating. These seats are extremely wide, will fit a wide range of people, and I find them pretty comfortable. While they do offer not a ton of side or lateral support, they do have adjustable lumbar and things like that to help you get comfortable. The inserts in the center are this sort of synthetic leather feeling material, and then the sides are sort of a maybe nylon type material is the best way I can describe them. Definitely kind of feels more outdoorsy, rugged, or utilitarian. Not the most supple or luxury focused seats, at least from a texture perspective. But the back row seats, there is a ton of room back there. They also recline, or you can adjust the recline angle, which is nice. I have plenty of leg and headroom back there. Well, before we take this thing for a road, let's try and cram a bike in the back to see how much space there is in this Hummer EV. Before we try throwing a bike in this Hummer, it's worth noting just how high the load floor is in this vehicle. I'm 6'1" and the floor of the trunk is higher than my waist. Outside of having to lift items really high to get them in, there is a ton of space back there. While the overall storage height isn't huge, mostly due to the high load floor, the sheer width of this vehicle allows me to add my extra large frame 29er mountain bike with ease, something that's important for a rugged off-road vehicle. As always, if you enjoy the bike test and the rest of this content, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss future videos. We are not on my usual mountain road for this drive because we need sections of road where we can stretch the legs a little bit of this Hummer because it's so damn fast and also so large. Now we're on a just briefly gravelly, very broken road portion because while the speed is a big part of what makes this Hummer successful and desirable to people, look, man, for me, it's all about this suspension. This air suspension is nice. I've talked about this with the Ram RHO and like the Ranger Raptor. There is a certain luxury to being able to run over everything and everyone without any cause for concern, and this vehicle falls under that category. I love vehicles that just soak up bumps. Like I said, you could just run over curbs, you could run over pedestrians. Wouldn't advise doing that, but nothing really upsets this chassis. It just soaks up bumps so well, and outside of a certain luxury of not having to slow down for speed bumps or any of this other stuff, it just rides really well on the road too. It's super smooth, leveling. It's also nice because it kind of raises and lowers to help you get in and out, which is really nice. And hey, look at this, we have some deer here, so a nice scenic drive. So I really like this suspension. It's actually my favorite part of the vehicle, which is kind of crazy to say because in a 1,000 horsepower vehicle, you know, that's probably everyone else's favorite thing. And don't get me wrong, oh my God, is it fast? Like, it's actually probably unethically fast, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but you should not just allow people to, with money, go to a dealership, get a 1,000 horsepower vehicle that weighs 9,000 pounds that accelerates this quickly. Like, please, people, if you're buying this, be responsible, because my goodness, like, this thing it's just like a missile on the road. It is so incredibly fast. And it's actually so fast that even though it only has a single motor in the front of this thing, it, like, at low speeds, I don't know if you noticed that, it tries to like rip the steering wheel out of your hand. There's torque steer in the front of this thing, which certainly makes it exciting. And hey, the power makes it exciting as well. That is, of course, the party piece of the Hummer. But I wanted to talk about the suspension first because I really think that that's what makes this kind of even more interesting outside of just the power. Now, let's go back to that. But while we're on the topic of the powertrain outside of it being just super powerful, it's of course very smooth because it's an electric vehicle. It's very quiet. There's no noise or vibration outside of the off-road tires on this thing. So there is a certain luxury to just it being an EV, which is kind of interesting outside of just the outright speed. Now, back to the suspension and chassis. Outside of this, being able to soak up all the bumps, it doesn't completely fall apart when you have to turn it. What's really nice about this thing is the four-wheel steering. Four-wheel steering is useful in sports cars, like Porsche has adopted it and a lot of other manufacturers. But it's also very useful for large vehicles because it makes them feel smaller to drive. I've been parking this in front of my house, and the way I get out of my development, I do an immediate U-turn, and I typically have problems doing that with most vehicles because there's just not a lot of space. But even this thing, as big as it is, because of the four-wheel steer, man, just zips right around. It's really good in parking lots. So even though this thing is very wide on the road and you can't get around that, it is shockingly maneuverable with that four-wheel steering. So all of these things are very, very good. And like I said, yes, you can get around twisty roads just fine. You do feel the weight though. There's no way to get around that, but it actually, because of the four-wheel steer, does hustle a little bit better than you would expect. It's not something that it wants to do, but it will do it if it's told. Now, other things that are worth noting, the noise in here. These off-road tires, a bit noisy. The wind noise is the most notable noise, however, and that's just, this is a boxy vehicle. I'm just gonna put my foot down because why not? God, it's crazy. The whole thing like heaves up when you do that. It's a boxy vehicle, you can't get away from physics. Also, removable roof. Like anytime you can remove the roof, it's not as sealed as well as obviously just a fixed hard roof. So on a windy day like today, it's sustained 20 mile an hour, gust to 30, 40. Man, it was really noticeable on the highway. So really that's kind of my biggest knock against this. Everything else is great. It's large and we've already kind of touched on that, but it's maneuverable. Everything seems to work pretty well. It's relatively put together well outside of the wind noise and removable roof. And I think what this ultimately boils down to is when I come to recommending which version that I would personally get for my money. So, as I've already mentioned, the sort of off-road tires, how many people are actually taking this off-road? Like if you can honestly have an assessment of yourself, maybe you would like to take it off-road, but will you actually take it off-road? Do you need the off-road package with these super knobby tires that are loud and get you worse, not fuel economy, but worse efficiency? That's something to keep in mind. Do you need 1,000 horsepower? No one needs 1,000 horsepower, right? And I get it, that's part of this. Good Lord, this thing is so silly fast. But personally, I'd be okay getting the 2X, which is the 2 motor. It has 600 horsepower. Oh wow, that's so puny. Realistically, 600 horsepower, obviously plenty. So, save some money. Get the 2X instead of the 3X. Don't get the off-road package. You can still get this air suspension. You still get the full, Hummer experience. Everything else is more or less the same, and you get the looks and you get the four-wheel steer and, like I said, the air suspension. So to me, under $100,000, that's where the money is better spent. Like if you're actually taking this off-road, more power to you, and you can get away with off-roading a $120,000 vehicle, have at it. Be my guest. But for my money, I think that's better where it's spent. And this is just like a really cool, all-around fun vehicle. You could put your kids in the back. It can be a family vehicle, as crazy as that sounds. Obviously, it's excessive. Obviously, it's very expensive. But I have heard of some really good lease deals since these aren't moving super well from what I've been told. So if you can get this for a good price, outside of the wind noise, the price is my only complaint with this thing. If you can stomach the price, it is a dumb vehicle. It is completely unnecessary, but it is really fun. And I talked about that with the RHO. There are vehicles that are dumb, and there are vehicles that are dumb and good. And this is dumb and good. No one needs this, but it's actually really fun. Same thing with the Ram RHO. No one needs that, but It's super cool, and I could see absolutely why you would buy it. So guys, if you made it this far in the video, thank you very much for watching. Consider hitting that subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Peace.